What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down exactly what Donald Trump said by reading his quotes and how this helped the market explode. I'm going to break down what the data has been suggesting and what the charts are telling us for the future. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, and the offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So, as you guys could tell, the market was in a very, very critical place. And just as a reminder, yesterday was Wednesday. CPI data went up. Inflation has been going up for all items and core. So, inflation was above expectations. It's going up on the CPI side. Today, which is Thursday, we got PPI data. Everything was above expectations. Once again, inflation is going up again, not what people wanted. And then we had Donald Trump, who was supposed to come out today and announce his tariffs. So anyone with half a prefrontal cortex would suspect that most of this news and data is bearish. You would think that this is not good. Inflation is going up and so on and so forth. So lots of people started to short the markets. We started to see Wall Street doing the same thing. There was lots of bearish sentiment. And as a result of that, these market makers, the big guys, they came up with an idea, and that was to squeeze the shorts, cause the market to pump instead, which made them a lot of money. So when Donald Trump was giving his speech, when Donald Trump was announcing his tariffs, instead of dumping, the market exploded. And we're seeing SPY trying to break this trend line right here, which is quite bullish. So looking at SPY, we're looking bullish. But like I said before in my videos, you have to be very unbiased when trying to approach things. So I will talk about the charts in just a couple of minutes. But I'm going to break down why we're breaking out like this and what could happen tomorrow and beyond, at least later on. The QQQ is also exploding. It's approaching its all-time high. I'll break this down as well. And as you guys can see, lots of these big tech stocks are on fire. Nvidia's up 3%, Apple's up 2%, starting to break out. We saw Berkshire Hathaway in the green. Some stocks were quite flat, but then we saw Tesla and many big tech stocks in the green as well. So lots and lots of green. What's going on? What did Donald Trump say? So the first thing I want to remind you guys about is the fact that Donald Trump has said that he's going to be giving us reciprocal tariffs. He did announce his plan already. He already gave us 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum and 10% tariffs on China, on the Chinese goods. So with this happening, Donald Trump had more plans, at least to announce how he's going to go about the future tariffs. And he announced some very, very important things. So I was taking notes during his speech, and I actually wrote down what he said. I also have like his transcript, so I'm going to read what he said and then talk about what this means. So the first thing is that Donald Trump said, and I quote, "The federal government loses billions a year in fraud." That's what he said. He said that we'll consider countries that use the VAT tax system. Whatever they charge us, we will charge them. So that's very interesting. Very, very interesting strategy right over there. He mentions that many of these countries are charging us vastly more than what we charge them. We're going to call it a tariff. The VAT tax will be reviewed, and it's going to be viewed as a tariff, and then provisions will be made for non-monetary tariffs. So Donald Trump is saying that instead of charging countries a flat rate of 10%, 20%, 30%, they're not doing it that way. Instead, whatever the countries charge us, the US is going to charge them back. So if the UK is charging us like 10% for a lot of goods, they're going to find a way to try to make it even, and they're going to charge them back. So that's kind of like what his plan is, at least thus far. He also mentioned that is going to imminently sign action on reciprocal tariffs. That's how he describes them. He mentioned that we will consider value-added tax systems as a tariff, and Donald Trump has warned us against routing goods through third countries to avoid tariffs. So he doesn't like the idea of certain countries which would have higher tariffs to route their goods through a different country with cheaper prices just to like save money. He does not want us to do that. He did warn against doing that. And he made that very, very clear for different countries. Donald Trump said that he wants to level the playing field for all U.S. companies. And then he mentioned that the EU has now lowered their tariff to 2.5%. Trump said that's a big win. He said no tariffs if countries manufacture or build products in the USA. And he said that he expects some countries to reduce and terminate their tariffs. So what does this mean? So if you have a country, just for example, hypothetically, let's just say you have like India, they're charging the US 30% for particular goods. That's how much the tariffs are. Well, the US is going to charge them back that much. That's what Donald Trump is saying. So India is obviously not going to like that. So they have the option to lower those tariffs, charge the US way less. 15% instead, 10%, and the US will charge them that much back. That's the deal he's trying to forge. That's why he's saying he expects lots of countries to lower their tariffs and to even eliminate some of them. He also mentioned that they're working on a reciprocal plan. They're trying to come up with numbers equivalent to those limitations. That's what Donald Trump said. And then when we say limitations, we're trying to say that not everything's going to be perfect. We don't trade the exact same things with every single countries and things like that. Then Donald Trump said that later on, he started to say that this is going to be over and above steel tariffs, also cars and pharmaceuticals. Car tariffs will be over and above reciprocal tariffs and coming very, very shortly. Then he said that ships and pharmaceuticals will be uh, over and above. So he's trying to make it very, very clear what he's prioritizing. And he mentioned that he's happy to lower countries on tariffs if the other countries want to do it to them. He mentioned that India has more tariffs than nearly any other country, and he's saying that if they want cheaper prices, they have to do the same thing for the U.S. That's what he's trying to say. He mentioned that car tariffs are coming very, very soon, and then he also implied that they could be increasing tariffs on semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. Trump said, and I quote, "I expect jobs to go up, prices to go somewhat up in the short term." He said that I expect tariffs on autos to be coming very soon, and interest rates are going to be coming down. So he said interest rates will be coming down very, very soon, and that his reciprocal plan, could be starting as soon as April 2nd. So that's like an estimation. He said that Canada has been tough on military, not paying enough. He criticized Canada. And then he went on about how we should be expecting the same from different countries. Besides that, he went on about the Ukrainian war with Russia and how he wants to negotiate with both sides. He said that. Then he went on about how he just started talking about the auto tariffs. Then he made a very, very bold claim. He said that Taiwan took our chip business away. That's what Donald Trump said. He said, I do not want US steel to be made in Japan. And he went on to say that they're going to likely be increasing tariffs on those. And he said that Taiwan, once again, he repeated the same thing. Taiwan took away the US's chip business. He wants to once again take over that business. And then he went over other details. The last thing is this. He was talking about the BRICS nations. That includes like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, I believe. They're basically being threatened. Donald Trump said that if they threaten the US dollar, then he's going to impose 100% tariffs on them. So he's threatening these countries, saying, hey, if you guys try to devalue the dollar, if you mess with the dollar, then they're going to be increasing tariffs by a larger extent. So that's in a nutshell what he said. I was reading the majority of his quotes. And then he once again repeated that interest rates are going to be coming down very, very soon. So he's in favor of interest rates coming down. He's not happy with the way Jerome Powell is leading. And then he went on about, the same things. So what does this mean, at least for us moving forward? Some things are optimistic for the markets, at least to some extent, considering the fact that although he wants to increase tariffs, the tariffs that other countries charge could also come down. So that's a possibility. But then at the same time, he said things which aren't as great, at least for particular businesses for the short term, such as the fact that he's open to increasing tariffs on the auto industry, pharmaceuticals, and then semiconductors. So we'll see what happens. That's in a nutshell what he's been saying. The market had a more positive reaction, not because of what he was saying, but more because of manipulation, in my view. But for now, we're going to be looking at this in a lot more detail. I'll talk more about the charts in just a couple of minutes. There's more quotes that have come out where Donald Trump did talk about how he's going to increase tariffs on like copper, the EU, computer chips, and then others like that. So just keep that in mind. And then for the countries out there, his claims could include a lot of tariffs for different countries, for Germany, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, the UK, all these EU countries, even India. So negotiations are going to be made, and these countries will be coming up with an idea with how they're going to negotiate. So will certain countries start to decrease tariffs on the US now so that the same tariffs could be reciprocated, or is he going to do something very different? We'll have to see about that. So keep that in mind. We'll see if they end up decreasing their tariffs or not, and we'll see what ends up happening with this plan. So far, the market's excited. The market likes this. The market's been pushing, and it's still looking quite bullish. Besides that, just know that for tomorrow, it's going to be Friday. It's going to be Valentine's Day. There's nothing too significant coming out for tomorrow. And then For earnings, we just got Coinbase, Moderna, and a couple others. Coinbase is very bullish in terms of its longer term. For the short term, I would say that their earnings were decent, meeting expectations for the most part. The share price ran like crazy before earnings came out. So it's kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of reaction. It pumped so much already, so now it's starting to slow a little bit in the after hours. Besides that, tomorrow, once again, it's February 14th. Keep in mind that we have about in total about 350 360,000 of these calls expiring, and we have over 725,000 of these puts expiring. We have a 2.09 put to call ratio. The majority of puts are once again expiring tomorrow, so we have more puts than calls. And then as far as the market sentiment goes, we're at neutral now. The market went from being very fearful to neutral in terms of its positioning. And then momentum is at neutral. It's in the middle after this big push. The put to call option ratios at fear. We saw a lot of puts being bought, which is no surprise for why the market's approaching all-time highs and the VIX is dipping. So with that being said, what do we see for the market moving forward? What is my opinion of how this is going to move? Let's now be very, very unbiased about this. So let's start off with SPY. What do I think about SPY so far? In all honesty, guys, I want to say that SPY is looking quite bullish. However, we have to be unbiased because of one problem. The problem with SPY is the fact that we pushed, which is awesome, but we have not broken the all-time high. There was once a day when SPY pumped really hard. If you guys look back at, I think it's Thursday, January 23rd, we saw SPY pump to the same place where we closed 609.6. And then we hit the all-time high and rejected really, really hard. We got this huge rejection, right? So sometimes when you hit 610, we do reject. Every time we've hit 608 to 610, we have rejected. And if we break this on the other hand, if we're looking for the next leg up, you have to break this resistance. If we break the all-time high, then we're looking for the next leg up higher. And it's very simple to understand. It's very simple, guys. Tomorrow, SPY is going to push a bit more, most likely, like this. We're going to push like this. 610.5, very close to the all-time high. And then what's going to happen is I can't promise anything because you have to look at what the reaction is. If we reject off 610 and we lose 608, we're looking for a dump all the way down to about 605 or below. There's going to be a dump to 605 if we get a big rejection here. If we break past the all-time high, if we surpass the 610s, I think we shoot up to 615. I think 615 is our next target if we hold above the 610s. So keep that in mind. Do we break the 610s and shoot up for 615? Or do we get a rejection and turn back down to 605? It could go either way, but I want to mention that Nvidia is looking very strong. If Nvidia continues this pump, and as long as we hold 135, we have a gap to fill. And if Nvidia starts pushing to fill that gap, Nvidia could lead the market higher. There's a stronger possibility of that. So in my view, what's a little bit more probable is this breakout right here, because we're breaking out of this trend line of resistance and the market's holding up very, very well. Also, this is like a flag that's forming. There's no sign of rejection. And right now we are looking very powerful, especially as we got good volume. And with all the pump that came thanks to Trump, it may continue as the market makers love to squeeze shorts on Fridays. Typically, they love to do that unless we get a bad piece of news. So typically, we're more bullish on Fridays. Okay, so watch and see, just to be very, very unbiased when I say this, will we pump to the all-time high and reject really hard? Do we reject off the 610s and make our way back down to 605? Or do we break the 610s and push up to 615? I'll recommend watching that for tomorrow. What's a little bit more likely is that we're just going to try to break through and go for that 615 target. I find that to be a bit more probable, but we'll see just to be safe, right? You don't want to be too biased in this market. The market is very, very tricky. For example, if you were biased today and you were expecting downside, and if you were playing for downside, you would have taken a big hit. So my point is, don't be too biased tomorrow. Tomorrow, look at the chart like this and tell yourself, hey, if SPY rejects and loses 608, I'm looking for the bearish side. If we're bullish and we break 610, I'm going to be playing the upside. Keep it very simple, and you'll be, rewarded very, very well if you guys know what you're doing. For the QQQ, this looks bullish. There's a left shoulder, there's a head, and there's a right shoulder right over here. Also notice that we had this low at 502. We came up, made a higher low at 508. We came back up. We made another higher low right here at 521. We're just continuing to uptrend. So the chart looks bullish. The full measured move of the inverse head and shoulders takes you to about that 539 to 540 area. So it does favor upside a bit more, especially thanks to Nvidia. If we're bearish, just hypothetically, guys, let's go over the hypotheticals. Okay, if we're bearish tomorrow, I want to see this essentially lose the support right here at 530-ish. If we lose 530, then yes, we could be dipping back down to 526, if not below that. So watch that very closely. If we're bullish and the QQQ manages to break past resistance, if we hold above 536 and we don't get a rejection from here. So there were instances where we had a tough resistance around that 536 area. If we hold above 536, I think we might be flying close to 540. 540 plus could be coming, or even above. We could start shooting much higher, but I think that 540 would be a very, very nice target. So watch and see. Do we lose 530 to turn bearish, or do we end up breaking past 535 to really start running? Whichever way we end up going, if we could hold above 536, I will be favoring upside. This chart does favor the upwards direction, looking at the potential inverse head and shoulders, looking at the setup. We look a bit more bullish, especially when you look at Nvidia and big tech. But we'll see, just to be safe, so be unbiased going into tomorrow. For the Russell 2000, we are doing the same thing. Now, notice that we have like equal lows here. We're trying to push. When you zoom out of the charts, this resembles a range with an inverse head and shoulders. What do I mean by that? There's a left shoulder here, there's a head, there's a right shoulder. This is trying to push right now, but it depends. So this is a little bit lackluster compared to SPY and the others, but there is still potential. We're nearing a bullish cross in the PPO right here, and we're trying to push past our EMAs. If we hold above 126.5 tomorrow, I think that we're going for, did I say 116? I meant 226.5. If we hold above that, then we're looking for essentially 230. If we break that, then yes, this could be a breakout that's coming to the IWM. At the very least, I do anticipate that's the more bullish case, a test of 230. We'll see if that breaks for this to really start pushing. That's a very, very tough resistance. Notice how many times we rejected off 230. So hopefully we break that. If we turn back down, if we don't break and hold above 226, you're looking for a move back down to 223. What looks more probable is this. We are favoring a push for 230, but we'll see, just to be safe. So make sure you watch your levels. Remember, guys, I was drawing something out for you on our ES chart. I did this multiple days in a row about how these channels are developing. So we have this channel just like this, right? For example, there's a channel, we're rejecting, and we got to break through this. This was our next leg up, right? Then we formed a second channel like this. And then all of a sudden what happened was, notice that we're starting to break out of this. We're actually above the channel now. The first time we broke this in over about a month from now. So in this case, it looks bullish. It is favoring the upwards direction since we're breaking out of this channel. See how we're breaking this like yellow resistance up here? That's a good sign. If you're bearish on ES, you want to see this reject. You want this to be a fake move. And what you want to see is this. So since we're starting to break out, you want to see us actually break back to our EMAs around the 6100 area, and you need to break back around where this trend line is for you to turn bearish. So I want to see this lose 6120, then eventually 6100 to turn bearish. If you're bullish, you want to see this continue to push for 6160. This chart is favoring the upwards direction. This also kind of looks like a nice accumulation that formed here. This is sort of like a cup and handle, sort of. And then this is your breakout right over here. This is favoring that this is about to be a breakout under what Trump just announced. And this is going to try to continue to shoot higher for the 6168 area, or even higher than that. So we look more bullish on ES. We could be approaching all-time highs. Whether or not that happens depends on how we end up reacting tomorrow. So be unbiased tomorrow and watch your levels. We do favor upside nonetheless. Now, NQ is at the 22,000 area. We did reject off this many times historically, but notice that in this case, we're not rejecting. We're actually holding above it very, very well. You could also argue technically that we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder, and the full measured move takes you all the way up to about the 22,400s. So this setup looks bullish. If you're bearish, you have to lose 21,871 at the very least. This chart is favoring. What's more likely is, instead of it coming down like this, we're breaking out of this blue resistance, and we're going to try to do a move like this where we dip and then start pushing up to about 22,400. So this looks bullish. Plain and simple, it looks a bit more bullish. Bitcoin's trying to rebound a bit. It's not that strong compared to its counterparts. Could be looking for an attempt to get up to 97,000. We'll see if we break past that. Otherwise, it's just in a range. For Nvidia, okay, this is looking pretty good right now, despite what Donald Trump said about potentially raising tariffs on semiconductors. He did not give specific details, and with the whole market trying to push, Nvidia still got bought up very nicely. So earnings is about a little bit under 2 weeks away. What I want to see is this. If we hold above 136, I think we easily fly for this gap fill for the 142 area. If we don't hold above 135, we start dipping below 135. If we can't hold above it, we're going to be at risk of dipping to about 131, then 129. I'm favoring that this wants to start filling the gap here. I think it looks a bit more probable. We have like a cup and handle. Even though what Donald Trump said was not the best for Nvidia, this is still technically favoring upside. It is still technically looking good. So I hope that Nvidia holds above 136 tomorrow. If it does, we're looking for an attempt to fill that gap for 142. It does look a bit more bullish, technically speaking. Tesla's looking more bullish. I really liked what Donald Trump said, and also got lots of good news thanks to the fact that it got a big upgrade and factors like that. So there's a big upgrade in the share price by benchmark, and it's looking pretty good. As long as we don't lose 350, we're favoring a push for about 360, 362 as the most likely possibility. If that breaks, I'm looking for 368, so we look a bit more bullish on Tesla. For Apple, we're looking bullish. Why is Apple looking a bit more bullish? It's very simple. So we're looking at this liquidity zone right over here. If we reject off this supply zone, we could be tipping back down towards 236. But here's the good thing about it. Despite that, we have two bullish confluences. This is firstly like an inverse head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Secondly, if you zoom in, we have like a triple bottom breakout and we have this imbalance up here that's acting as a magnet. So see this imbalance from up here? This is like a triple bottom that formed. And this is favoring that it's going to try to slowly uptrend like this to fill this imbalance and make its way up to about 246. We look more bullish as long as we don't end up losing 240 and then eventually 235. As long as we're above that, we still technically favor that we might dip here, then start pushing. Small dip, then a breakout. As long as we're above 240, we favor a push all the way up to 246. We look a bit more bullish. Anyways, guys, I think I'm over time right now, so I'm going to be very quick with the rest of these. Netflix is looking more bullish. It is favoring a push for essentially 1,050 or above. As long as we don't end up losing 1,030, we favor upside. MSTR is looking a bit more bullish. If we break past 328, we're looking for an attempt to get up to about 333. If we lose support right here at 320, we could dip, but this is favoring upside. Celsius is getting a break from this wedge. So maybe if we redraw this, you guys can see that this is like our wedge that's been forming. So if anything, we're doing a good job. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. As long as it's close, it's going to be fine. But this is a nice breakout. We could be testing 23.08s tomorrow as long as we don't lose 22. We favor 23.08s and eventually 24. We look more bullish. For Supermicro, we look more bullish. As long as we don't lose 39, we're favoring a push up towards resistance up here around the 43 area. For Palantir, we look a bit more bullish. If we end up losing 113, we're looking for a dip. Otherwise, we have like a bullish wedge that's forming an attempt to get up to about 120. For Rivian, we're looking more bullish. We are looking like we want to be pushing up to about that 13.5 plus area. There's also like an inverse head and shoulders here. So this is looking bullish. Rivian looks like it wants to go. So I'm seeing a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. As long as we continue this uptrend, as long as we get back above 13.5, we could slowly uptrend for the 14s. And as long as we don't lose like 12.95, I think we favor upside. So it's looking pretty good. SoFi is looking decent, trying to break out of this wedge. We had a falling wedge on it, just like this. We're trying to break. There's no confirmation yet. We have to break 15.32. If we break that, I think we easily go close to 16. For AMD, we're looking decent. If we break past 113, we're looking for an attempt to get up to 115. If we end up losing 110, we could be dipping. So I think there's a good chance that we might be pushing. For ARM, we're trying to break out of this wedge. As long as we don't end up losing 160, I think we're favoring a push for 168, then eventually the 170s. For Coinbase, we're in the middle. So we pumped really hard already. It already pumped so much. So after its earnings came out, which were, I would say, so pretty good, if anything, it wasn't really enough to get this to explode. It kind of pushed it, but then dipped. Might dip a little bit to about 288 to 290 before it tries to bounce. Overall, it's still bullish, but there might be a small dip before it tries to break out higher. As long as Amazon does not lose 228, we favor a push for 231, then 232.5. It looks bullish. Meta's looking bullish as long as you don't lose 719. Notice we keep on bouncing off our green line here, the 20 EMA. Today we bounced off it again, so this is favoring the 730s. For Microsoft, we're going to be testing 411. If that breaks, we're looking for 413. If it rejects, you want to see it lose 408. It's in a range, but it does favor 411. Google is trying to be testing 188, then eventually 190, so it looks a bit more bullish. Overall, it's doing a great job. GameStop made a big move. Keep in mind that this is going to be looking for some big news that came out. This might be trying to push tomorrow. If we could try to hold above 27.5, it may push for the 29s. AMC may follow the trend. It could dip to about the 3.34 to 3.4 area before it tries to bounce. It likely tries to follow it. DJT is flat right now. If we break past 30.7, we're looking for an attempt for 31.4. The VIX is dipping right here. Notice that the VIX is at 15 right now. It's at support. If 15 does not hold, we're going to be at risk of dipping to about 14.6 or so. So it's looking bearish. It's at support, so we'll give this some time. The 10 year is coming down. So is the dollar. It's dipping, which tends to be bullish for the markets. So right now, in all honesty, I can't promise anything about the future because we're at resistance on SPY. We haven't broken the all-time high yet. But we'll have to watch to see if we break resistance to break the all-time high to be bullish or if we get a rejection. Right now, the charts favor upside. It looks like it wants to go higher. It looks like we want to break the all-time high. And if we do, we're looking for essentially 615. So watch that very, very closely tomorrow. Can SPY break its all-time high in the 610.8 area? If we do that, I'm expecting more upside. So that's my assessment. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And please stay safe out there, guys. Don't forget, my number one piece of advice would be that if you are trying to do anything, I would say don't be biased tomorrow when you trade. Don't be bullish or bearish. Just look at the chart, watch it, see if we're about to break resistance or about to reject. Be patient, wait, and you will see what the direction is. Play the trend. The trend is your friend, and we're looking for a very, very big move, whether we reject or not. Hopefully, we see the upside move. I am favoring that a bit more, but we'll see just to be safe. So keep that in mind, guys. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.